Okay, welcome to this explainer. Today we're taking a really complex, absolutely fascinating idea and breaking it down so you can actually apply it to your life. We are completely redefining a concept you probably think you already have a handle on. But look, I need you to forget everything Hollywood, pop culture, or fantasy novels have ever told you about spells, wizards, and cool aesthetics. None of that applies here. Today we're diving into a brilliant essay by Gemini Cool titled Actual Magic, Threshold Engine of a New World Singularity. We're going to dissect what this ancient concept of magic really means for our hyper-accelerated modern lives. All right, ready to get into it? Let's go.
So picture this for a second. Think about the sheer, overwhelming velocity of our world right now. I mean, we've got synthetic intelligence, instant global information networks, cultural hyperacceleration. It's literally everywhere. But what happens when the rate of change actually outruns our ability to make sense of it? Well, the author calls this a singularity. And no, we're not talking about a sci-fi robot takeover here. It's a moment when the speed of change simply leaves the mental machinery we built to process it in the dust. Our old maps, those systems we built for a stable, predictable world, they're suddenly feeling us. And holding on to rigid mental blueprints during a landslide is basically just a guaranteed way to get buried with them.
Section 1. Navigating the Modern Singularity. To really grasp this singularity, we kind of have to flip how we think about the spaces we live in. We'd have to move from the comfort of a cozy room to the permanent uncertainty of a doorway. See, old world systems, like our traditional belief structures, well, they were built for the interior of a world. They gave you commandments for a settled house, assuming a nice, stable cosmos that would definitely still be there tomorrow. But actual magic, it's built for the crossing. It fuels the liminal, that unlit, sketchy corridor between rooms. The problem is, modern culture absolutely hates the unmapped middle state. We always want instant rebranding. But right now, there is no solid ground to return to. The threshold has literally become our permanent habitat. The crossing is the condition.
Moving on to Section 2, the true meaning of magic. So, if it's not a magic wand and a Latin phrase, what exactly are we talking about here? Well, here's the definition that kind of changes everything. Actual magic is a fundamental integrity. It's this deep capacity within yourself to remain completely coherent while crossing between states you have absolutely zero instructions for. Think of it like an architectural model built for dry land. Actually, scratch that. It's more like the dynamic equilibrium, the biological elasticity of a sailor in a violent storm. That sailor survives through pure muscle memory and immediate physical response to the deck violently shifting beneath their feet, not by reading a textbook on hydrodynamics, right? It literally converts the vertigo of a changing world into an instrument of orientation.
I absolutely love this quote from the source text. You cannot think your way to it any more than a wave can get wet. That hits the nail on the head. This faculty operates completely below the intellect. It's an unconstructed presence that acts as your structural anchor when all your mental blueprints shatter. When the room is stable, this faculty just sleeps. You don't even need it. But when the world reorganizes underneath you, it's the only thing that keeps you from scattering to the wind. It's honestly closer to your physical sense of balance than it is to any religious doctrine.
Section 3. Ritual without the symbols.
Okay, so now that the cerebral tokens and symbols of the old world have lost their weight, how does this actually operate in real life? The author uses a surprisingly relatable example for this: Thanksgiving. Now, put aside all the historical baggage of it and just look at the bare structure. It is a recurring ceremony of gratitude. Nobody sitting at that table is mentally manipulating symbolic tokens or holding some strict dogmatic doctrine of Thanksgiving. Yet, the physical weight of the table, sharing the bread, even the awkward communal silence, it just works. It bypasses the mental apparatus entirely. It engages your nervous system through shared physical presence. This is ritual stripped of belief, where somatic focus does all the real heavy lifting. And this brilliantly illustrates the huge shift we have to make. The old way, that was symbolic performance, standing outside the sacred and just pointing at it, manipulating symbols on a board like a game. But the new way, actual magic, is pure participation. It's standing directly inside the sacred. You aren't representing the world anymore. You are acting as the conductive wire. In this hyper-accelerated era, you don't need to believe the symbol. You just need to maintain your conductive integrity and let the current pass right through you. Which brings us to Section 4, the occult operating system. Let's peek under the hood at the architecture of how this runs in the background. We're going to start with a rather grotesque but incredibly vital ancient image. The concept of mysticism digital sounds super complex, but it's actually a profound recognition.
Archetype and information architecture are the exact same thing, just seen from two different sides. Destiny is literally just data with a soul. Think about the old myths, like the alchemical image of a toad dissolving in a boiling cauldron just so it can dream of a future king. It tells us that total dissolution is the required price for prophetic vision. The toad doesn't think the future, it croaks it from the mud, way below cognition. Myth and mechanism are not enemies at all. They're twin expressions of the exact same structural imperative.
Just consider how this applies to something like the tarot. If we strip away all the fortune-telling parlor tricks, what is it really? It's a data structure. It's a 78-slot deep subconscious database. The major arcana act as system kernels, and the minor arcana are your runtime variables. These archetypes aren't silly superstitions, they are a human native compression format. It's basically a computational interface built entirely out of cardstock and ink, designed to run directly on the wetware of human intuition. You aren't getting some mystical message from elsewhere. You are decompressing a pattern you already carry inside you. And this phrase right here is the hinge of the whole concept. Once upon a time, again to come. It completely collapses the past and the future. Myth is actually a compression format for the future. Look, the radical unknown is terrifying, so the future disguises itself as a fairy tale, as once upon a time, just so our nervous system doesn't totally panic and crumble when we encounter it. It's essentially a Trojan horse smuggling the unborn future right into our present reality.
Section 5. Marrying your dark side. Okay, we are taking a bit of a hard turn here. True magic cannot be some whitewashed, manicured fantasy. It requires the dark. The text brilliantly calls the shadow the baby mama of the real. So often, spiritual philosophy suffers from this manic whitewashing, wanting everything to be just pure light and harmony all the time. But an ideology that refuses to account for the dark is going to shatter on impact with raw reality. The shadow is not the enemy of creation, it is its co-parent. Real beauty absolutely must have a dangerous, predatory edge to it. Think of the terrifying majesty of the ocean in the middle of a storm. If beauty cannot cut, it's really just decorative wallpaper. Let's see how this builds into what the author calls metabolic integrity. It's exactly like biological digestion. You do not achieve integrity through some fake purity or by completely excluding the dark. You achieve it through metabolism. You ingest the whole shebang, the traumatic and the divine. You extract the nutrients, transform that energy, and then you discard the waste. Actual magic takes the wicked and the beautiful together and digests them into something totally coherent. It literally marries the shadow. And finally, Section 6, the apocalypse is a wedding. This brings us to the real climax. How do we actually acquire this capacity? And what does it mean for the so-called end of the world? In a singularity, when the world changes faster than anyone can possibly learn, traditional instruction just fails. You literally cannot study fast enough. Instead, we rely on what the author calls astral academics. The curriculum isn't learned, it's remembered. It's an ancestral inheritance. You have this deep ancestral hard drive loaded with survival scripts compiled across millennia of catastrophes by the very people who survived before you. In a massive crisis, you don't learn how to survive. You unlock what was already preloaded into your cellular architecture. When facing this kind of singularity, we almost always default to the catastrophic frame, don't we? We view total transformation as an apocalypse, a war, the tragic death of the old world. But actual magic demands wedding party consciousness. A wedding is the ultimate archetypal threshold ceremony. It takes two completely separate things and, at one precise liminal instant, makes them one. We must radically reframe our global crisis from a devastating funeral to an ecstatic wedding ceremony joining the old world to the new. Just let the poetry of the source material resonate with you here. The threshold is not a funeral, it is a wedding. The apocalypse is a marriage. The singularity is a nuptial. Actual magic is the actual ceremony being conducted right at the seam of it all. It marries the self to its shadow, the living to the ancestral, the story to the system, and the old world to the next iteration. Reframing the future this way takes our posture from sheer terror and transforms it into a joyful, radiant expectation. And that brings us to our final question for you to consider today. The systems we build for a world that would sit still, yeah, they stopped keeping pace. The exam is active right now. So, how will you cross your own threshold? Are you going to go kicking and screaming, fleeing a burning house? Or will you step boldly through the doorway of the singularity, arriving at an altar, your integrity totally whole, ready to be married to the new world? Keep that in mind as you navigate the week ahead. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you next time.